Good evening and welcome. I'm Bob Pace. I'm your host to a live podcast, How to Fight CPS and Taking Our Children. When I refer to CPS, I mean the Child Protection System. It's in every state throughout all the counties. It may have different names. It may be called the Department of Child Services, DCS. In California, it's a California excuse me, it's the Child Protection Services. When I see CPS, I mean all the organizations in all the states and around the world that protect the children from neglect and abuse. Neglect and abuse. And also, they're supposed to provide social services, help with the family, and if they break the family apart, family reunification. It's supposed to be a government service that is for the people, to help the people, and to help protect our children and help our families stay together because the best parents are the biological parents, is proven. And it's sad because the child protection system has changed. It's no longer what it was founded on. Now, it's a branch of social service. And, it was started and mandated by Congress to protect our kids. But they've now gotten out of hand. Even when I was involved, they were out of hand. I think they've been out of hand for a long time. And people are finding out that how horrible the child protection system is and how horrible it is when your kids are trafficked or alienated in the system. Now, I'm a loving father. I'm a 73-year-old dinosaur. Yes, I am. But I've worked 60 years all my life. I have a family of 6 children, 3 grown up and 3 young ones. I also have a wife, and we've been married for 31 years. And I too was caught up in the child protection system. I had 5 years where they constantly harassed me and they couldn't find anything I did wrong. Then on the 5th year, they tried something new and they found something wrong and they stole my 3 children, my 2 boys and my girl. Their ages 9, 12, and 15. And they were taken right away from school. They weren't in dangerous situations. They did not have to be taken in. But you'll find that the child protection system does that all the time. So I'm trying to help you and try to help you understand what you can do to protect your children and your family and try to get back and everything. I think it's really important that that you listen closely to what I'm saying. Now, there's several ways you can interact. I see a sad face. I see 2 of you with sad faces. Matt Johnson and Lori Hilder. I'm so sorry, Lori. You're in my room a lot, and I know that you have somebody that you always seem to ask for. And so I'm welcome you both in the room. And I want you to know that this room is very, very interactive. Now, one of the things that it's one step you can do is just by being in the room, taking notes, and listening. That's all you have to do. Take the notes and listen. Now, let's say you want to make a comment or ask a question. Excuse me. I put it up on the window there at the bottom of my screen. So when you're typing in a comment or question, make sure it pertains to CPS. We want to talk about the child protection system. It's very important we do that. Now, please show me your name. I know you may have a name, but if it's a name that is hard to call out. Like it could be the Truth People or Eagle Nest. I like a name like Tom, Bill, or Mary. So if you could put your first name, it would be great. Also, it's important you put your city and state or country. It could be the city and country because countries come in here. You find this podcast on Facebook. Anybody that has the internet and Facebook around the world can find me. And then I broadcast on YouTube. And I use the StreamYard application. And it forces you to make comments. So it's important that you tell me to be complete with your CPS case. Now, what I mean by complete is that try to, when you start a case, to get certain things done so it's not playing ping pong ball. I don't mind playing ping pong ball, but it takes time going back and forth. Try to have it so that I know your family structure. Are you a husband, wife? Are you a girlfriend, boyfriend? Are you lovers? Are you a partnership? Are both parents involved with the kids? Are you a single parent? Also, what are the ages and sexes of the children? That's really important. Are the children all with the same fathers and mothers? Or we have different fathers, different mothers? And then what were the allegations that your children were taken and how were they taken? Did you give them up? Did they come into your home? Did they use the police? Those are things that would help me help you and know what your situation is. Also, I like to know where you're at on your case. Are you at the beginning or at the end? The beginning or the end? Now, I did mention countries, and I should say a little bit about them. So far, the text and comments have been Bangladesh, New Delhi, India, several countries in Africa. I've had the South African province on the west coast text in. I've had the country opposite from Madagascar, Mozambique, which is on the east coast, opposite Madagascar Island. And then I have Rwanda, which is in Central East Africa, near Lake Victoria. And they had a horrible time in 1994, which is not too long ago. Their country was in the midst of civil war, and 1 million people were slaughtered. 1 million people were killed, and 500,000 females were raped. Young, old females. It was sad. But the country's recuperated, and they commented in about CPS. Now I go over here to North Africa, to the coastal town called Liberia on the coast. They too have called in. They had a leader named Archie who talked about scouting. Scouting is really important to Archie, and he says that's where they have girls and boys that do scouting. It's no longer the Boy Scouts. It's got girls now, so it's called scouting or scouters. I do want to welcome the people coming in. I'll be with you shortly. I would like Matt Johnson. Welcome, Matt. And he said, I was taken out of my third grade gifted class. This is interesting. Okay. You were taken out of your third grade gifted class, Matt. I'm sorry that happened to you. I don't know if that was in foster care or happened now. Also, I don't know where you're from, Matt. Can you tell me where you're from? Okay, we have another person here named Razzle Ray. And Razzle Ray, I've been following your page for a while. I was a kid in the foster system and went through a home I was lucky to survive through. The home I went to at the age of 6. I went through a home where I faced all forms of abuse, far worse than the home I live in with my family. I'm so sorry you had a terrible home life. It's been nearly 20 years now, and it still lives with me. This happened near Stillwater, Oklahoma, back in 2003. Well, Razzle Ray, thank you for sharing me, and I'm sorry you had the horrible experience. and I'd like to talk to you more. And welcome to the show. And I have a person here, Daiwanda Butt. I was involved in CPS in Mississippi, and it was a nightmare for myself. Um, but worst for my son. Oh, I'm so sorry having to your son. And welcome, Faye. And Faye, I want to tell Faye, first of all, my humble apologies goes to this remarkable woman that during our discussion this morning, I wrongly said the statement that made her think that she was sheltering pedophiles, which is far from the case. We were talking about a pedophile with Crystal Salazar, a man who worked for the Child Protection Agency that asked to see a girl of 13 alone, which was a no-no. And he asked to take off her clothes so he'd take pictures. I wasn't there. I don't know if he had a camera that develops pictures or what. I don't know the procedure. All I know is that sounded gross, and I got angry myself because I don't like men taking advantage of young women. I never have. And I don't know if he took the pictures and going to sell them on the internet or whatever it is. But he was, her mother called in and he was fired. And it became even worse for the case. So again, Faye, I apologize very humbly and ask for your forgiveness. Now, Faye says she's from Richmond, Kentucky. And Kentucky right now is being accused by the Department of Justice in Washington, D.C. for violating the disability rights, and the ADA. ADA stands, oh boy, I know D is for disability. The American Disability Act is what the EDA stands for. And that was an act that was enacted by Congress that's supposed to protect people with disabilities. And what's been happening in Kentucky, and this was in the town called, not Lexington, there was another town. There's another town, and I saw the video, it's a short video. And what it was sad because they were taking parents that had disabilities and sent them off to hospitals. And the children, too, they were discriminating against them and not giving them the same assistance that normal parents, and I shouldn't say ADA is not normal, but parents that don't have ADA problems. So Faye, she lives in a state that's number one bad state for CPS, number one police state that's bad. She has nothing nice to say about Kentucky. I think Kentucky, well, she does have to say something. I got to be careful when I say things because they take so out of context. Kentucky is a home of Daniel Boone. I don't know if you remember the frontiersman, but he was a senator there, and he's a home of Daniel Boone. It's called Kentucky Bluegrass. It's beautiful. But somehow the government, the governor, and the police, and the child protection system, which is called the Bureau, is very corrupt. And Faye lost her, well, she was able to save her son, but she lost her daughter. Her daughter was taken away from her at 5 years with no reason. No reason. Faye had been in foster care as a small child, and she was in it 5 different times, and she went through everything you can imagine. But she has a son that she loves so much. He's 23 years old, but he needs special help. He's one of those kids that need help from somebody, and she wants to be his guardian, his custodian guardian. And she's had nothing but trouble trying to pursue that. So I'm glad that Faye, that you talked about what you talked about. I have Mark Play here. My child is with CPS in, I should put that there. My child is with CPS in Canada. I fought for custody of my child for 5 years before they told me that I was taking too long to get a proper size place for us. If it wasn't for her mother and I breaking up and her getting full custody, than losing a child to CPS due to prostitution and drug dealing. I had to go through this. I'm so sorry, Mark. I would like to hear more from you. Mark, are you from Canada? What part of Canada are you from, Mark? I've had several people from Canada. Faye further says parents lose their children to termination of parental rights more than any other parents involved in the DCF, Department of Children and Families, cases. And I think she's talking about, well, I guess, yeah, parents, all parents. Termination of parental rights, you never want to happen because that is terrible, terrible. Now, Matt Johnson further says foster care. Matt was in foster care in Florida. My mom had substance abuse issued, but has seen interesting things regarding the system. He fought for custody, child, for 5 years before they told me that I was taking too long to get a proper sized place. It wasn't for the mother and I breaking up and her getting sole custody than losing the child to CPS due to prostitution and drug dealing. I would never have had to go through this. I've gotten out of sequence here. Faye further says parents lose their TPR, termination of parental rights, more than the other parent involved. Matt Johnson further says foster care in Florida. My mom had substance abuse issues, but I've seen interesting things regarding the system in Fort Lauderdale and shared stories with others regarding the conditions. I'd like to hear more, Matt. Donna Budd. Some of the problems in these cases, workers and guardians at Lightum do whatever they want, are not held reasonably or prosecuted for things they say or do. The CPS social workers lie. They lie all the time. It is wrong. They retaliate. Mark from Canada said, I had a 2-bedroom home with a nursery all set up. I had a good job and was financially stable. Nothing was good enough. And this is coming from Canada. This is coming from Canada. Razzle Ray says, more than willing to share my story, especially as it brings to light how broken the CPS system is. It is very broken. My kids, I lost one daughter, by the way, who's never returned to the family. And that was because of retaliation by the social worker. And Razzle Ray, I was in the midst of explaining how they interact in this podcast. I haven't put my phone number up yet, and I will do shortly, Razzle Ray, and I'd like you to be a part of it. I'd like you to be part of it. Faye says so true. Mark says, I'm from British Columbia. Okay, that's in Canada. CPS has caused me to hit rock bottom. I know how you feel. I lost my $2 million home and my credit's ruined. I worked 40 years for that home and it's gone. I remember the day that my daughter was taken from my arms and they served me papers and walked away with my daughter. All I could do was sit there and watch her leave. That is very heartbroken, Mark. I feel for you. I know when they took my 3 children from school, they weren't in imminent danger, but they took them from school and put them in a foster care shelter next to the prison called the juvenile prisoners, and they were exposed to the prisoners in the play area along with some bees' nests. They didn't eat properly. They did not sleep properly. The place was dirty with cockroaches. And it was convenient for the social workers because it's near the courthouse. This is in Orange County. That shelter is the pits. And their idea of schooling was to read a book to them. They were taken from their school of origin It's wrong. Now, Razzle Ray says, "Hi, Faye. I can't figure out how to reply to your comment. Don't know how to call in either." Razzle Ray, I'll put my phone number up very shortly, okay? I just don't want to take a call and still be talking about how they interact with the podcast. And you guys can't read the comments. So what you do is you type a comment and I'll put it up and you can see it. But the only people that can see the comments are me or my co-host. And Mark says the CPS she's in is in First Nations. And I'm not First Nations, so they've been accused of racism in court. Denied all year, restricted to access to my daughter 2 hours, 1 day a month. Now, when you say the word First Nations, are you talking a Native Indian, a Canadian Native Indian? I need to know that, Mark. I can help you out there. Faye says he'll put the number up in a few minutes. Yes, I was just talking about making comments. And so please, as you're doing, make sure you put the name and city and country code. And I was just talking about Canada. Down in the United States, I've talked to all 50 states, including the Washington, D.C., even small places like the Rosebud Reservation in South Dakota. Further south, I talked to Mexico. Then further south in South America, it was Guyana on the coast, east of Venezuela, north of Brazil. Then across the pond to the land down under is Australia. And I've talked several times to Australia. Now, the third way you can interact with this podcast is you can be scheduled as a guest. I have a show producer. Her name is Grace. She's on right now. She helps make my podcast possible and corrects anything and helps me with any problems. She's also the person you need to write an email to be a guest. And you can be on my guest. I have 14 shows. I'm on Monday through Friday, 2 times a day. I come on at 10 o'clock in the morning and 7 o'clock at night. That's all Pacific Standard Time for 1 hour. There are exceptions. Every Sunday, I come on at 8 so me and my family can go to church. And then on the 6th of September, I have a very important football game with my son. So I'll be doing the podcast at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. My evening podcast will be that. Now, the email her is grace@vincentwdavis.com. Grace@vincentwdavis.com. So tell her that you want to be on Bob's Wednesday morning show or Bob's Thursday evening show or whatever the 14 shows you want. And then she will contact you, give you the link to StreamYard, which is the application I'm using, tell you what to do and not to do, like no eating or smoking and no first names of children or the judges or the social workers there. Now, you just email her, grace@vincentwdavis.com. Now, my phone number will go up right now. My phone number is up. That means you can call in at 626-698-0990. That's 626-698-0990. So, I would like Mark and Razzle Ray. You said you want to call in. The ball's in your court right now, Razzle. You can call in. You can call in, Razzle, right now. Now, I love these comments. I appreciate you all coming in. They must have given a notification that it was out because sometimes they don't give a notification. So, now, Razzle Ray is from Stillwater, Oklahoma. Matt Johnson is the gentleman from Canada. He's from British Columbia, Canada. And I'm not sure if he is a native Canadian Indian because he said First Nations. And the First Nations in Canada may be the native Indians there. Okay, we got a call coming in. And we'll see who it is. Good evening.
Hi, yeah, this is Raziel.
Yeah, I'm Bob Pace, and who am I speaking to again?
This is Raphael.
Oh,
Raphael Ray. I was commenting
yeah,
on
Raphael.
your video.
Right, you're from
Yeah.
Oklahoma, correct?
Yeah.
Right. I want to make sure I get the right people at the right places they're from here. And I'm really happy you're at Stillwater, okay? Stillwater, Oklahoma. And
It's where I'm from. I currently live in Idaho. But yeah.
Right. Your case was in Stillwater. And
yeah.
Yeah, you said that you've been fighting your page for a while. I've been following your page for a while. I was a kid. Now you were a kid in the foster system. Was that before you started having children yourself?
I don't currently have kids.
Oh.
I'm interested more in the fact that I was the kid that was abused, and I mean, I saw it from that side, and I'd like to see people done right.
Well, I'm so sorry that you're abused because most of the cases I hear is true. Now, I did have a foster parent on the show 2 nights ago. Talked for 20 minutes about how she's a foster care mom and how she does things. Not all foster people are bad, but the majority that I've spoken to and the majority of people they have. My kids were in foster care and they were hit, abused with a point system so bad that demoralizes my young son and told he could not drink orange juice, told what he could do and not do. It's really, the idea behind foster care, it's supposed to be a family that goes through training with that agency. And they're supposed to, this foster care mother that called in does not do adoptions. She refuses to do adoptions. She's there as a temporary holding place and tries to provide that kid a home and encouragement to be back with his parents. Nothing is so bad that having the system that doesn't allow the parents or the child to know what's going on. They do what's called alienation, which is wrong. They do not discuss your case with each other. The kids don't know if you're doing parenting classes, if you're fixing things up, or where the problem was. The parents don't know where the kids are. You don't see them in court. You only see their visits if you're lucky. And those visits are monitored. They're very demeaning, and the people that do them are very bad. It's a bad, corrupt system, all the way from the top to the bottom. And
I couldn't agree more.
What happened with your kids? Why were you put in foster care? What happened to your mom and dad?
So my folks split up when I was pretty young. So I grew up with my dad.
How old were you when you split up? How old were you when you split up? How old were you when you split up there?
Well, when they split up, I would say about 4. I was pretty young.
You were 4 years old, and that must have been traumatic because all you knew was a mom and dad. Did they do domestic violence in front of you?
Not that I can remember directly, but I have heard stories.
Well, I mean, did they argue in front of you or yell at each other?
I do remember arguing, yeah.
Yeah. Arguing is one of the worst things you can do to children. When parents argue and the kids listen, it hurts them because they love both parents and they don't want to choose beside which parent's right or wrong.
Yeah.
And so that was traumatic. And then you said they broke up. Now, was the custody arrangement to be 50-50 with the mom and dad or all the time with the dad?
It was most of the time with dad. And at first I would go visit mom every other weekend.
Okay. So it was split there. What deteriorated with your mom? I mean, it sounds like your mom stopped seeing you.
Both parents were really deep into drugs and all of that back then.
Okay.
And yeah, she got so far into it that she kind of just fell off the grid for a while.
I'm so sorry. I really am, Razel there. Now, how long were you with your dad? To what age?
For the first time, I was 6 years old when I got taken into foster care. When I came out of that, about a year later, I was with them until I was 11. And I went into the foster system again. And I was there until about 14. And from then, I lived with them until I turned 18 and I moved out.
Now, what was your experience in the first time in the foster care? What was that like?
That one, I will, pardon my language, was literal hell. I lived in a house with a woman that was infested with all sorts of roaches. I think there was bed bugs even.
Oh God, that's gross. That's gross. Yes.
Yeah, she would physically abuse it if she was upset over anything. And I do remember times when she would let strange men into the house, and that's sort of something I really don't like talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, did you ask to have a new foster parents or what?
No, I was with her the whole year until I finally got to go home.
Oh, then you went back to your dad?
Yeah.
And were things better with your dad or still the same old, same old?
They were better for about 3 years. He got sober and then he fell off the wagon. And I ended up getting put back in the system because of it.
Wow. Wow. So then you went back into foster care.
Yeah. That one wasn't as bad as the first time, but it still wasn't the best. I went to a shelter for the first couple of months. From there, I was moved into a house with a better off couple. They were nice enough, but they kind of treated me, since they were rich, basically. They kind of treated me like I was less than human because I came from a broken home.
Oh boy.
From there, I went to the last foster home I was in, and I really don't have nothing to say about her. I actually still talk to her. She was honestly the best foster parent I had. I was with her for about a little over a year before I finally got to go home again, and I was home until I turned 18, and I moved out on my own.
So the second time with the foster care, it was better, but you stayed there till you're 18.
I was there until I was about 14.
And then where did you go at 14?
I went back with my dad. We lived at our family's farm. He was kind of away from everything, so he'd stay clean, and we had support with the other families too. So.
Well, that is good. I mean, and then when you were 18, you moved out.
Yeah. But everything, we really didn't have the best relationship, so I kind of just left.
So are you now in college, or what are you doing in your life?
I currently work for a bullet manufacturing company in northern Idaho.
Okay. So you have a job, and are you able to take care of yourself?
Yeah.
Great. And I guess, are you having relations?
Not at the moment. Can't really say I'm really interested in all that, to be honest.
Yeah, probably because you're brought up and you saw parents arguing. It's sad. The reason why I bring up all these things, these are life skills. They used to teach a lot of life skills in high school, but they don't do it anymore. But just be careful. Just be careful, because foster care will have a record on you. And when you have children, they will take away your child. I'm heads up warning you. It seems like some people are in third generation where their parents was in foster care, then they had children, and then that children had children, and they take them away. I've heard so many stories about family that were in foster care, like Faye. Faye was in foster care because her mom had a drug problem. She was not a very good mother to Faye. She loved her mother, and she was with her mother till she died. But Faye is a loving person, a very giving person. And so she met a man, and she had a boy, and then she had a girl. Apparently, it found her that she was in foster care. And the system's so corrupt that they made a choice to her. Either she give up her son or give up her daughter. And the reason why she kept her son is he's a special needs child. He needs her to take care of him. So Faye has had to grow up and see her daughter, who I think is grown up now, that that there's no hope of her. Maybe when the daughter turns 18, she'll look her up. And Faye can talk more about that case anyway. But she also would tell you how foster care got involved when she started having a child.
And it's I will say the biggest reason I moved from Oklahoma is because of that. They're guilt by association, basically.
Yeah, Faye is trying to help out Mark Play. I should catch up with Mark. He's from Colombia, and I believe he is a Canadian Indian, a native Indian. And I don't know how ICWA, the Indian Child Welfare Act of the United States of 1978, would help him out, because they only talk about the 548 recognized Indian tribes. And the reason I'm talking about this, Raphael, is that Mark, who's from Canada, is asking for some help. And so just a moment here, I'll catch up with them. So let me catch up. See, okay. Okay. Mark Play said native, aka Aborigine. Then Faye said weird comments are showing up tonight. And then Faye, so did they apply the ICWA in your case? I'm not sure if he's from the United States. He says he's from British Columbia, Canada. And I don't know if ICWA is applicable to Canadians. So Mark says, yes, they did. They forced my daughter into the native-only schools where she isn't bullied, where she is bullied every day. She says she isn't interested in native culture because she gets treated badly by their people, but still gets forced everywhere. I'd be interested, Mark, what is the act in Canada? Does the Indian Child Welfare Act of the United States also work in Canada? And then Mark says, I wouldn't wish this experience on my worst enemy. I understand, Mark. It must be horrible for your daughter. And Faye says, if a tribe is not federally recognized, registered, I don't think ICWA would apply. Yeah, but Faye, I don't know if you know, he's from British Columbia, Canada. British Columbia, Canada. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's from the United States, but he put British Columbia. I haven't had my daughter on Christmas since she was 4 years old, and she's 11 now. So for 7 years, he's not seen his daughter, which is terrible, Mark Play from Canada says they are recognized. It used to be with under the Hua Ot tribe, and now she's with a different one called the Takwa Lebin. I think those are all Canadian Indian tribes. And Faye says, okay, good. So they did apply to ICWA then. I wish we knew if we're still Mark's in Canada or is he somewhere in the United States. It was a native tribe. CPS took her away. Okay. Okay, Faye's trying to help. I really appreciate Faye helping me. And now she says she understands. Okay. Mark says her mother is native, so my daughter was forced into native-only school on the reservations. Okay. So she told me that she was treated like garbage and was touched inappropriate by other students. That's terrible for your daughter to go through that. I tried to do something about it, but was threatened with criminal charges for racism, and a few other things. Boy, Mark, that is there. But Mark says it was good to have people know all these experiences, but I got to go. It's dinner now. Thanks for listening, everybody. Thank you, Mark. I hope you're right from British Columbia, Mark, because I'm totally confused. So it was a native CPS that took his kids. That's terrible, Faye. That took his daughter. And so I guess it was a Canadian tribe up there that decided to intervene. Okay, I have Raphael on the phone who's been talking about how he was brought up several times in foster care and he wanted to share his stories. Can you tell me at all during foster care, did they feed you okay or was there a lack of food? What was the day-to-day routine with foster care?
The first one I went through when I was younger, it was weird. I would say that there definitely wasn't an established routine. Some days we would have an overabundance of it. Some days we would have barely enough to make it through the day. Yeah, a lot of the times I even feel like eating. There was usually bugs in it.
Yeah. Thank you, Faye. That NICWA must be I will look up the NICWA. That's something new. I'm learning something because Faye is so fast. Wow. It's called the National Indian Welfare Association. I never heard of that, Faye. That's really quite interesting. Um, wow. The National Indian Child Welfare Association. And it's an organization in Portland, Oregon. So Mark confused me, Faye. He said he was from British Columbia, which is in Canada. So I misunderstood that. Now, did you have good health care, Raphael? Did you have good health care?
At the time, Oklahoma gives state health care to all the kids. We had that. I really don't remember actually any of the first foster parents actually doing anything when I was sick.
Right. Well, the reason why I'm doing this is because I'm trying to educate people about foster care. Because when home life is no good, your next course of action is have a family member take care of the child. That's the next best course. It's been proven that the biological parents are the best. But in your case, your mom and dad had a drug problem and it wasn't working out.
Yeah.
And so in your case, you're put with foster care. But foster care people are supposed to go through training with that special CPS system and learn all there is about how they care for children. It's very easy for foster care people to adopt. They don't have to pay money and they don't have to go through a lot of rigmarole to adopt children.
Yeah, my first foster parent actually had two older kids that she had adopted. And I honestly feel bad for them. They had to spend the rest of their lives with her.
Faye, is there any question you want to ask Raphael, or is there any question you want to ask Faye? She will gladly look it up for you. Is there something you could have done differently, Raphael?
At the age I was at, I really didn't have a choice.
Okay.
Now, if I could have, then yes, I would have said something. I would have named my distant family members that could have taken care of me. that they didn't even think to look up or something like that. At that age, I just scared and confused to even know what to think.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we've had interesting, had a lot of people in this room tonight. We had a lot of comments coming in so fast, I couldn't keep up with it. There are certain times the show is dead. I have very few people. But then there's other times they come in, so many of them, and so forth. I learned something here about a nationwide organization of Indians I did not know about or even existed. You see, the reason why I even talk about this is the Indian Child Welfare Act was done in 1978 to make it so that Indian families would take care of their own. Meaning, when CPS took an Indian child, and this started from 1875 forward, back in the days when Indians started to be on reservations, they'd automatically send them to foster care. They wouldn't try to work with the family. So they made that act so that it forces them to find out if the Indian child is registered or could be registered at one of the 548 tribes. And then in turn, they would turn over the child, if they're registered or a Native Indian, to them to have the family stay with one of the families the tribe will be taking it. But now I've seen several tribes that are bad. There's a tribe in Oklahoma called the Cherokee that have turned on this woman so bad because the executive director of the Cherokee Nation there is also the state attorney general of Oklahoma. And they're threatened to take away her children because she has dirt that she found with the Indian tribe. And that's sad because it's hard to believe all this stuff. The other is today I learned about the National Indian Child Welfare Agency. And it's a nationwide organization. So I guess it takes care of Canadian Indians. And so I'm glad they have protection because everybody needs it. And I'm glad that Mark shared the story. Now, I've had several other people here that have talked, but didn't go much further. There was a lady here that talked early on. Let me see if I can find her. Dawanda Budd. And she had a terrible case there, but I'd like to hear more from her on that. Now, there's also another foster care kid named Matt Johnson from Florida. And his mom had suspension abuse. But I've seen interesting things regarding the system in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So I have Matt Johnson. I've not heard further from you, Matt. Let me see anybody else. I don't want to leave anybody out of the picture here. And I'm so glad you've been following me, Rizal. I don't know why I'm calling you Raphael. It's Rizal, right?
It is Raphael.
Oh, it is Raphael. I said it. That's the way you're spelling it. Okay, Raphael. I was doing it right. Okay. Anyway, I think it's so great that that you called in, Raphael, and share your time with foster care to maybe help other people. You know, as a child, you have no choice about the matter. That's the sad part. You're forced into a corrupt foster care system. And that is really, really, really bad. That is really, 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 really bad.
Yeah, at this point in time, I think my story has gone on long enough that I don't know if I could ever get any sort of reparation for it. But at the same time, I've struggled with mental health issues over the years because of it. And I feel like, if other people heard the story that they can relate to, it'll help.
Yeah, yeah. Faye, I'm sharing your link so everybody in the room can see it. You have to copy the link down, https://LAWMMONS.LUC.EDU/VIEWC ONTENT.CGI ARTICLE equals 1252 and CONTXT equals CLRJ. I'm sharing that with y'all in the chat because I can't copy it. I can't open that link. I have to go to my personal phone to open that link. Now, is there anything else you can think of that you'd like to share to the listeners since I got you on the phone, Raphael?
Well, in terms of personal experience, other than going into detail, I've shared everything I have. The only thing I can really give is a word of advice. No matter how hard life gets, always keep fighting.
I like that. Keep fighting. It's the same people that do sports. They always say, keep fighting. Never give up. Never give up.
Yeah.
We as a culture has never given up. If we have a war of the fight, we never give up. We never give up. And if you are definitely in the right, you don't want to give up. And I'm so glad you said that. That's a good comment to say there. I have about 8 minutes left before my podcast is over. I would like to talk about, and you can stay on the phone if you think anything that could come up there, about getting an attorney. Now, that's one of the things that seems to be missing with a lot of you. And I know most of you don't have the finances. I did. That's why I lost my home. That's why I lost my beautiful home. Because I sold my home to fight and get my children back. My family meant the most to me. And I know most of you say, well, I got a court-appointed attorney. They are going to waste your time and build your hopes up. They have a caseload of 30 more clients. They don't have time. They won't even meet you before court. The first time you meet them is when you're in court, in the hallway. And you're not allowed to participate in the court proceeding because you have a representative. That's what social workers, that's what the child protection system wants you to do, is keep a court-appointed attorney, because that court-appointed attorney is controlled by the judge and by the social workers in the court. He is corrupt. He won't fight for your case. He's not that experienced. He's young. He's underpaid. And I'm telling you, you need to get an attorney. And right now, for $60, I can have you with the top attorney in the country to talk to him for 30 minutes. He'll do a consultation and show you what to do about your CPS case, how to navigate, how to get everything in that. And if you like him, you can also hire him as an attorney. He'll talk about his retainer. His name is Vincent W. Davis. He has been an attorney for 35 years, and he's fought CPS. He is a family dependency child attorney. There's child background, family law, and dependency law, all three there. He has fought CPS. He's done lawsuits, both civil and federal levels, and won millions of dollars. So he's a true fighter, and he will work in any state, including Northern California. A little bit more money because of the per diem, but anyway, he right now will talk to you for 30 minutes for the consultation fee of $60. All you have to do is call on that number, 888-888-6582. That's my office, is his office. And you just tell him that Bob Pace sent you. And when you talk to Mr. Davis, say that Bob Pace sent you. And then furthermore, do it. You get nothing to lose. I know $60 is a lot of money. To me, it'd be hard because that's a week's worth of groceries I try to feed my family of 4 on, which is very hard to do. And so, anyway, you can call in. Also, I have a ticket running since the start of the show. It's a ticket which talks about the internet site that you can also schedule a time with Mr. Davis. It's a website. and you would just type in HTTPS colon // CALENDLY.com, candidly.com / APPTS VWD / Bob Pace, BOBPACE. That will take you, and you can book your consultation for 30 minutes. And I made a special arrangements with Mr. Davis to be able to talk to him. I hired him. He got my 2 boys back. So he's a good attorney. But these social workers are terrible. Dealing with CPS is like doing open heart surgery. That's how difficult it is. With open heart surgery, you wouldn't a layperson open your heart, or you yourself wouldn't open your heart. You have to get a professional, and Mr. Davis is that professional. So please call in and do that consultation. In fact, that's one of my rules there. That's one of my rules. Another important rule is my rule number 3. There are only 3 ways to get in your house. Anybody, the police, or anybody. If you give them permission, that's 1. Or 2, there's domestic violence going on where people are hitting and hurting one another and children are present, or the child is being picked up and thrown against the wall, or guns or knives are being used, any kind of objects. That's domestic violence. Police and the social workers will enter the home. The third way is a court warrant. It's a legal documentation signed by a judge, and it has a wet signature of the judge's signature with an embossed stamp. It's where you fill the paper and it has a embossed paper on it. Then it's clearly going to say who the person they're claiming to talk to is, the mother and father, or both, or is one or the other. And then it's got the list of the children, and then it's going to have the allegations. And then it's going to give you the address of where the investigation can be at, and the date and time they can do the investigation. Furthermore, there'll be what they can plan to do. Plan to talk to you, take the child, whatever it may be. They have to have this thing called a warrant. Those are only 3 ways they can enter. So don't let them enter the home. There's been too many people shot to death opening the door. So don't be one of those people that gets shot to the door opening the door. Also, be careful of medical trafficking. Medical trafficking is really troublesome because you can have a situation where you take your child to the hospital and suddenly there's a CPS worker there and they take your child. So you got to be careful, heads up, because the child protection system is in the hospitals. You're having a baby, you're tested positive for drugs. They will come in with the police and try to take your child. Don't let them. They have to have a court order. Don't let them take your child. Watch the medical trafficking. Those 2 rules are really important. I have 5 rules. They're on my shows. I can talk again. But I want to thank everybody in this room that participated in the discussions that we had and that we're trying to make, better for you, because I know what you're going through. I know how hard it is. I want to thank Matt Johnson for calling in and expressing his issues with foster care in Florida, in St. Fernando, and substance issues, and he had some interesting thing. I hope that he would come back again. I also want to thank Raphael on the phone, Raphael Ray from Stillwater, Oklahoma, where he went through it 20 years ago. Horrible time with foster care. Then there's Dewana Budd from Mississippi, and she had a case with her son. Then there's Faye, who is from Richmond, Kentucky, who shared her stories, and also thank her for all the things she's done on the show. She's given so much of her time. Then there's Mark Play from Canada, British Columbia, Canada, and his wife was a native Canadian native Indian, and I guess they have this thing called the National ICWA. It's a national organization in Canada that supposedly the agency is corrupt. It's one of those bad agencies that isn't helping them out. And he was talking about prostitution and losing the child, and that is so sad to go through there. Let me see, and we've had pretty much everybody else. Mark, Raphael. Did I leave anybody else? I'm always worried about leaving somebody else out there. We had a lot of comments tonight, and I appreciate it. You made me work hard tonight. Mark came back. He wanted to say something. This is Mark. I'm just back. Wanted to add that I'm now married and have a 9-month-old child, an old son, that is my care, but the CPS hasn't taken into consideration that I have a child in my care, so why not give the other one back? There are some messed up groups, that's for sure. I agree with you, Mark, and thank you, Mark. With that note closing, I welcome you all tomorrow morning. I'll be on at 10 o'clock in the morning. That's Pacific Standard Time. Keep fighting for your kids. God bless you, and